In 1945, when the war ended, I was personally the officer in charge of a group that arrested the commandant of the prisoner of war camp at Kuching. I took him into custody, escorted him back, and I volunteered for the firing squad. Had I been selected, I would have had to administer the coup de grace, which the officer in charge does. There's usually an 8-man firing squad in charge of an officer. The firing squad fires their shots. One of them has a blank so that nobody knows which one had it. But at the end, the officer in charge had to apply a revolver to the temple of the victim. I could have done that in those days because the man that I arrested was accused of crucifying 2 Dayak women by nailing them to crosses in the marketplace at Kuching, and their only crime was smuggling food into the prisoners, most of whom were Australians. And they were left to starve to death, bleed to death over a couple of days. I didn't have to do that job because the prisoner asked for a razor to shave before his trial and committed suicide. I saw 3 Japanese hanged, and in the feeling of those days, I could have hanged them myself. They were undoubtedly guilty, and I had no sympathy for them. It was only much later, and it took the Olympic Games to do it, because being in charge of training, I had to provide facilities for the various teams, including the Japanese. I went to the Secretary General, Edgar Tanner, and told him I couldn't regard them as people, and I felt I couldn't shake hands with the manager of the Japanese team. And he said, "I think you'd better be a hypocrite. I've got more reason to hate them than you. I was a prisoner for 3 years." I took his advice and shook hands with the manager, and after a week I was asking myself, how could anybody hate these lovely boys and girls? Because they were. They were nice kids. And after the games, I made up my mind that at the first opportunity I would return the samurai sword that I took from a Japanese major who surrendered to me. I had no right to it, but I smuggled it home as a souvenir, and eventually I did return it. But it made all the difference to me because I realised you can't hate anybody you know. I could hate the Japanese during the war because I didn't know any. I'd never met any. I'd only seen one who was the pitcher for the St Kilda baseball club, playing before the league football as it used to be in those days. The curtain raisers were baseball games. His name was Takahashi, and I believe Takahashi was the commandant of a prisoner of war camp during the war, at which many Australians were prisoners. And I heard rumoured that he behaved very well towards the Australians, but he was a remarkable exception. However, I don't hate anybody now.